To the cousin who said she was too dramatic. She held your hand when your mother passed and never mentioned how rude you were.
They didn't expect him to speak. Not the church ladies in the front row who barely looked up. Not the cousins quietly scrolling their phones in the back. And certainly not the two men near the stained glass window who whispered, "He won't last 5 seconds." But he stood anyway, wearing the same black suit from their wedding day, now slightly faded just like his eyes. No notes in his hand. No priest guiding him. Just him and the mic. As he stepped forward, the room grew quiet, but not respectful quiet, awkward quiet. A silence filled with judgment, suppressed chuckles, and disbelief. Some thought he'd cry and sit back down. Others assumed he'd say something strange. He'd always been too quiet, too odd, not really her match. But he didn't care. Because today wasn't for them. It was for her. And just before he spoke, he looked around, slowly, at all the people who claimed to know her, and then said something that silenced even the ones who laughed. You didn't know her. That one sentence, subscribe, and tell us in the comments, hit the room like a falling chandelier. Because the laughter died instantly. Only gets deeper from even here. The priest shifted in his seat. He let the silence linger. Not for drama, but because he meant every word. You knew her laugh. Her recipes. Her little holiday cards with glitter on the corners. He paused. But you didn't know how many times she stayed up past midnight helping strangers online fight eviction notices, while hiding her own medical bills. Some eyes widened. Someone in the back gasped. You didn't know she donated half her salary anonymously to the shelter that turned her away in 2003. His voice didn't rise. He didn't need it to. It was calm, factual, bulletproof. She told you she loved baking, he continued. But she never told you that she baked because the kitchen was the only room where she didn't hear her father yelling in her childhood home. Now people were no longer watching him, they were remembering her. And realizing how little they truly knew. What came next would tear the entire room open. He didn't break down. He didn't tremble. He stood there, holding the mic like a torch, and began unwrapping the truth, not to shame the room, but to finally speak what she never could. She was the strongest person I've ever known, he said. But you didn't see her strength. You only saw her smile. And then he told them the story. The real story. She used to come home from chemotherapy and still cook dinner for me. She'd say, if I'm going out feeding someone I love. None of you knew she was sick. Gasps. A few quiet sobs. Her best friend covered her mouth, visibly shaken. She had spoken to her every week and never knew. She didn't want pity, he said. She wanted peace. Then he pulled a small envelope from his pocket. The audience leaned forward. She wrote this for all of you, he said, unfolding it carefully. And with the softest voice, he read her final words aloud, not of pain, but of forgiveness. She thanked people for showing up, for loving her imperfectly, and for reminding her in small ways that she mattered, even when they didn't understand her. The air felt heavier. Some people cried openly. Others sat frozen, ashamed of how little they'd noticed, how little they'd asked. And still he wasn't finished. He folded the letter slowly, placed it on the podium, and looked out at the faces, no longer smug, no longer whispering. Just still. Silent. Almost reverent. Then he said something no one expected. She forgave you, he whispered. But I haven't. Not yet. There was no anger in his voice. Just truth. The kind that makes people squirm because it leaves no place to hide. She was more than holiday hugs and Facebook likes, he continued. She carried pain in silence because she didn't want to make you uncomfortable. He paused. But I'm not her. I won't stay quiet. And with that he began naming them. Not with malice but with memory. To the cousin who said she was too dramatic, she held your hand when your mother passed and never mentioned how rude you were. To the coworker who said she was too soft, she covered your shifts when your son was in the hospital. To the aunt who said she needed therapy, she cried for you when your husband left and never told a soul how much you drank. Each word peeled back another layer of denial. Each name he spoke was followed by silence so loud it rang. And yet, he wasn't punishing them. He was liberating her. Lifting the weight she carried in life and finally handing it back to those who helped create it, knowingly or not. Now all that remained was what he would say to her. He turned slightly, looked toward the casket, and his voice changed. It softened, broke slightly, but didn't tremble. I hope you heard all that, he said, because I couldn't say it while you were here. You always said, don't make a scene. But today you deserve one. The room held its breath. Some heads bowed. Even the judge-like officiant wiped her eyes. I love you, he said. Not just for what you gave me, but for what you survived without ever asking anyone to notice. He stepped away from the mic. No applause. No music. Just raw stillness. And as he walked back to his seat, something happened no one could have predicted. People stood. One by one. Not as a performance but as a confession. As if standing could somehow say, we see her now. We hear her now. And we're sorry we didn't before. The clip of his speech would go viral within hours. Not because it was flashy, but because it was real. Because truth spoken simply is louder than anything else. That day, the man who wasn't supposed to speak gave the world a lesson in grief, love, and finally respect. Subscribe to The Unseen Truth, because sometimes the quietest voices leave the loudest echoes.